Mistake number 10 of 10 for saving for retirement. In this episode, I'm addressing the question, what mistakes do people make when saving for retirement? There are all kinds of mistakes that I've witnessed people make when saving or preparing for retirement so that hopefully they do not outlive their money. I have selected the top 10 biggest mistakes, and I would encourage that you watch all 10 episodes so that you understand how to avoid the mistake or correct it before it's too late. But this is mistake number 10. Are you ready? So, I'm Doug Andrew. What do I know? Well, I've been helping people optimize their financial assets and minimize taxes, preparing for a comfortable retirement so that they do not outlive their money. And I've been doing this for more than 4.5 decades. I've been blessed and honored in my lifetime to have authored 12 books. And at the end of this episode, I would like to gift you one of my bestsellers. It's called The Laser Fund, How to Diversify and Create the Foundation for a Tax-Free Retirement. Because that single book will help you correct the 10 mistakes in this series. Now, this particular episode is the 10th mistake. And some people, when I share it, go, really? That's a mistake people make? All too often. So are you ready? This mistake is where retirees think that retirement is just for a time to sit back, relax, and coast, and just sort of take it easy the rest of their life. In other words, I just want to relax and enjoy retirement, and then they're shocked about what happens. Oftentimes, when I have live audiences come to intensive trainings, we call them clarity retreats or at retirement planning, which is something totally different than maybe what you did for retirement. It's amazing how many people share with me stories of how they had been planning to retire, sit back and relax. I remember one master electrician for over 30 years that he was my client. I could ask him on any given day how long until he retired, and he would quote how many years, months, and days until he retired. And he and his wife had been waiting to retire. She was a secretary at a high school for the principal, and he was a master electrician. And they had been talking about and preparing for retirement for more than 30 years that I knew them. It was about 35 years. And guess what happened? Within 90 days of him retiring and her retiring, she passed away with a massive heart attack. And they never dreamed that one of them would graduate earlier than the other, okay? It blew him away. He was so lonely, and he had scrimped, sacrificed, saved, and put off smelling the roses, so to speak, for 35 years. And within 90 days of retiring, his sweet companion, more than 50 years, was gone. I could tell you the rest of the story because he was so lonely he got remarried, and she tried to take him for all of his money and succeeded in taking 50% of it. Very sad story. I've seen this play out many, many times. The first thing I want you to understand is that you need to smell the roses as you go. You should save. You should be disciplined. But in my very first best-selling book called Missed Fortune, I called it Missed Fortune because of the fortunes people miss out on when they simply don't know what they don't know. They don't understand the myths about money and how to dispel those myths. And there was a couple I talk about in the book that always told their children through the years, we can't go to Disneyland, can't afford it, we can't do this, can't do that, and so forth. And so the children, they had 5 children, and they were so disciplined, they were so meticulous, they just scrimped and saved, and they worked 70 hours a week each. They were almost strangers to each other. They basically told their kids, nope, can't afford it. Can't afford it, can't afford it. And the kids grew up thinking, I can't afford it. It was so sad because when they approached retirement, finally at age 70, and both of them lived over age 95, but for 25 years, they were like strangers under their own roof because they never invested time building memories. So it's like that old song, Cats in the Cradle and Silver Spoon. When they finally retired, she was into quilting, and he was into going out on hikes and going down rivers in some of the wilds of the western states. And they never seemed to get along because they never had been talking to each other much during the 40 years or more that they worked. Their children had learned to work. And they would come in and express frustration. Golly, Doug, we're trying to get our children to come and visit us. One lived on the East Coast, one lived in the Southwest, one lived in the Northwest, and other one was close by, and then they had a special needs child, and they couldn't get their children to come and visit, let alone their grandchildren. And every time they would call and say, hey, we'll pay for your airfare. We'll have you come out. It was like the song Cats in the Cradle. Oh, things are really tight. The kids have got the flu. Sure nice talking to you. And they would always say, sorry, you trained us well, Mom and Dad. And so all of the money they had accumulated was for naught. They had never spent more than about $30,000 a year, so they were very frugal. But they could have spent $100,000 a year with where I had their money, and they would have never depleted that nest egg if they lived to be 120. And I thought they were going to. But what was it all for? So if you're accumulating money and you don't use it for memories, and if you don't smell the roses as you go, there's a fine balance between living life as you go and then saving for the future so that you build memories in case maybe one of you doesn't make it very long, like my first story. But you want to make sure that if you make yourself necessary. Now, one thing I will tip my hat, she made hundreds, if not thousands of quilts. She made herself necessary every day until dementia got the best of her. But folks, if you're not in motion, if you're not making yourself necessary, if you're not oxygenating your brain, that is the number one cause of dementia, and that leads to Alzheimer's, are people who stop being in motion. Stay in motion. Make yourself necessary. And as you do that, you will live longer and you will have the health instead of just sitting back. Because if all you do is sit back and you do not make yourself necessary, you will likely pass away in 7 to 10 years, or you will lack mobility and you will drain out all of your resources with long-term care in a nursing home or with possible in-home care or going to a facility where others can help take care of you. So, to be honest with you, stay in motion. Make yourself necessary. Make it so that you enjoy life as you're saving for the future, and you balance that with setting aside enough money so that you don't outlive your money, but use it to travel, to take your kids and grandkids on family vacations with a purpose. I'm 69. My favorite week of the year is Grandpa's Camp, where we bring our grandchildren, the 12-year-olds and older, for the first 4 days, and we talk teenage talk. This is my wife and I. We love Grandpa's Camp. Their parents are not there. Then we have the 4-year-olds to 11-year-olds come and join the older ones, and they help facilitate. We do all kinds of activities. But it's the secret of staying in motion, adding value, recording, volunteering. I serve on a board of directors for teenage suicide prevention. I spend hours with many volunteers who will give their time and their talents to causes to make sure that their physical body is fit, but their mental capacity stays fit. Otherwise, what was it all for? So this is why I talk about at retirement planning and redefining yourself at retirement. If this is resonating with you and you can think of somebody who ought to watch this episode, share it, post a comment, click like, subscribe to this 3-Dimensional Wealth YouTube channel, because I have over 500 educational videos and I don't want you to miss out. I want to gift you a copy of my most recent best-selling book, The Laser Fund. So stay with me here another moment or two while I sort of connect the dots as I talk about this 10th mistake. When I share it, again, a lot of people go, really? That's the top 10 mistakes that people make? Yeah, watch all of them in this series, but this is number 10. This is where people just somehow they stop doing what they were doing. They don't make themselves necessary, and guess what happens? They just start to go down, and turn into survivors. I have a little bell graph in my third book, which became a New York Times and Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller. It was called The Last Chance Millionaire. And in there, this little bell curve talks about strivers. These are people who are striving to save money for the future, but oftentimes they will always have too much month left at the end of their money because they don't know how to discipline themselves to save. Okay. Now, I'm assuming you're a saver. So then you have strivers, and those are the financial jellyfish that are told to act their wage and cut up your credit cards. They borrow to consume instead of conserve. The arrivers learn to live on less than what they earn, and they begin to learn the 3 miracles of wealth accumulation: compound interest, tax-free accumulation, and safe positive leverage. The ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in those assets. You can learn about these 3 marvels or miracles of wealth accumulation in the book I'm going to gift you. The difference between arrivers and thrivers repeat the process. It's not just a one-off. They learn to repeat the process. If they get into rental income real estate, it's not just one rental property. They buy another and another and another and another. If they set up my favorite vehicle, the Laser Fund, many of them end up with 16 or 17 laser funds. They keep repeating the process. But all too often, when people approach retirement, they hunker down and they stop doing what they used to do to stay healthy. And this is the mistake, because they get down into a survivor mentality. I just want to make sure I don't outlive my money, and they hunker down and just survive. And guess what happens? When they get into the survivor mindset, their health dives, their money dives, and they do outlive their money, but they're usually dead sooner than later if they have no purpose in life. They forgot to make themselves necessary. They thought of retirement as this time to coast. So I want you to be an arriver and a thriver. Don't get caught up in the survivor or diver mentality where your health, mental, physical, and your wealth dives. Empower yourself. That's why every single book I've written talks about how to do that. So my final plea to you is to watch all 10 videos in this series of the 10 biggest mistakes people make when saving for retirement. And you're going to learn about taxes and inflation and following the herd, putting money in IRAs and 401ks. But the 10th mistake, don't just think of retirement as a time to coast and sit back, or you will likely not live very long because you are not in motion, adding value in the world, which is the secret to longevity. So I implore you, go to laserfund.com or click on the link below, contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that expense. And I'll send out a copy of this 300-page book to you. There's options there if you like to listen and learn and watch and learn, but this is actually 2 books in one. This side, the white-covered side, has all the charts and graphs and explanations of how to diversify and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement. But if you like to learn by stories and examples, you flip it over and read this side. And there's 12 chapters here with 62 actual client stories, and you will learn about these 10 mistakes that I've addressed in this series, how to avoid them or how to correct them before it's too late. And my favorite strategy or vehicle is called the Laser Fund. So here is to your brighter future.